Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to episode number 736. Actually, I don't know what number episode it is, but welcome to yet another episode of Drumroll Please, Zach and EJ Talk Sports. What's up, Zach?
What's up, EJ?
All right, so we have a very, very fun episode for you today. We're going to touch on the Super Bowl. We are going to also talk about our favorite Super Bowl commercials. Zach and I are going to recreate a spirited debate that we had prior to the start of our drum lesson on Tuesday. If any of you are not aware, I am actually not a professional sports broadcaster. I am a music instructor, and more importantly, I am Zach's drum instructor. And we had gotten into a very spirited debate, which we are going to bring you guys into. We are going back to our wheel this time. We have locked the door and chained our production assistant in the room, so there will be 2 rounds of our Fix It Zach segment, and we are going to close out with a couple hot takes by my man Zach. So, what do you say we get started?
Yep.
All right. Well, lay it on me. Super Bowl. What'd you think?
It was a very fun Super Bowl. We knew 2 very fun teams. I liked both teams. I was personally rooting for the Bengals, but I had no problems with the Rams winning because I like Matthew Stafford, I like Aaron Donald, I like Jalen Ramsey. Still not a big Cooper Kupp guy, but so watching the game, obviously with the last play, I just got to start with the refs were terrible in the game. They missed that T. Higgins play, which, I mean, it was pretty obvious. Face mask. Jalen Ramsey did flop. He took a dive like 40 feet into the sideline, but it was definitely face mask. And then for the rest of the game, they were just making makeup calls for the Rams, like many times, like pass interference, everything. They were calling for the Rams, and they just weren't calling anything for the Bengals. So the refs need to stop making makeup calls. And then also, it was very obvious. Aaron Donald is not only the best defensive player in the league, but watching that game the whole season, it's clear to me that Aaron Donald is the best player in all of football right now. They were doubling him the whole game, doing everything they could to make someone else beat them, and then he still ended up beating them with those 2 crucial plays. He ripped P. Ryan back when he was reaching for the first down. They came pressured. Joe Burrow forced that throw, which P. Ryan should have dove for, but I don't know. It's a Super Bowl.
Well, I mean, here's my thoughts. First off, it was a great game, and I feel that your sentiments echo a lot of the sentiments of people that I've talked to. That, you know, they were excited about both teams that were there. Both are generally likable teams, so there's not that villain, you know, or that been there, you know, mountain to climb opponent like a Brady or something like that people can, you know, kind of rally around and create a real underdog story. It was really a feel-good Super Bowl in a lot of ways, and I think most people walked away saying, hey, if it was a good game, you know what, like, I'm pulling for the Bengals. It seemed a lot of people were pulling for the Bengals, but I'm not going to be crushed if the Rams win. To me, the thing that was absolutely incredible is, and I wish we had a telecaster here where we could show it, if you put the play that ended the NFC Championship up side by side against the play that ended the Super Bowl, which essentially when I say ended, I mean the play that sealed it. Donald pressing Garoppolo, Garoppolo moving out and then fluttering that ball out, which was picked, was almost identical to the pressure that Donald got on Burrow. Burrow scrambles out and throws that little flutter.
Wasn't even
off
really
to the side.
a throw. It's like a sky hook.
Which was basically the same kind of move Garoppolo had. It's tough to deny just how good Aaron Donald is. I understand the presence that Cooper Kupp had. I understand the plays that Cooper Kupp made in that game, but Aaron Donald should have been the game's MVP.
I did vote for Aaron Donald to win MVP.
Aaron Donald was he played amazing. I just love the fact that on our very first podcast with your very first take, the first thing that you did was rate Cooper Kupp overrated.
Now
so to me, it's just
season of all time
and Super Bowl MVP. It's really incredible, and I get more satisfaction and enjoyment out of that than anything else because, again, for any of you that follow us, you know that Zach, in epic fashion, smashed my fantasy hopes and dreams this year. So I have to look for small opportunities where I can chuckle at my man's misfortunes, and rating Cooper Kupp as overrated on our first podcast is clearly one of them. I'm with you. It's tough. I mean, you know, the T. Higgins call, yeah, it was clearly pass interference. But the end of the game, all the chances that they gave the Rams. I mean, it really felt like the refs should have just basically put the ball on the 1 yard line and said, go for it.
Yeah.
That pass interference was touchy. There were a couple of the two penalties that canceled each other out, and gave the Rams another shot. These were all things that made it a little frustrating, down the stretch. And anybody that was watching the game, I mean, it was the last 8 or 9 plays the Rams had. There was not a single soul that was touching that ball other than Cooper Kupp.
Yes.
So
and on that note, I'm a trash on 2 players watching the Super Bowl. Odell. I don't hate Odell Beckham Jr. I'm not trashing on him. He was playing great, went down. So then Ben Zoranik, I hope I'm saying his name right. He came in and he was on the field. He was not a starter, but he was one of the receivers on the field. And he got a ball thrown to him, which he essentially tipped up to the defense for a free interception. Ben Zoranik, if you're still on an NFL roster next year, it would be impressive. And then I also, not to just hop on trashing on Eli Apple, but he is awful. He is terrible. He's at the quarterback position. It was on Cooper Kupp's first touchdown, I believe. Cornerback position. He's playing back. And he steps up because he's biting on the run. And it wasn't even a run. He got cooked. Cooper Kupp's wide open. The last touchdown that Cooper Kupp won, the one that won them the game, that wasn't as much Eli Apple's bad as the first one. Cooper Kupp made a nice catch. But just all game, he was getting cooked. And Jalen Ramsey, still the best cornerback in football, did not play very good.
It was fun watching him and Jamar Chase go back and forth early on. It was, Jamar Chase is going to be, if he stays on a trajectory he's on, he's going to be a star in the league for
even
a very long
on
time
that
to
last
come.
play where Burrow couldn't get it off, but Jamar Chase was wide open down the field.
Right. And you know what? I mean, listen, being a Dolphins fan, I do not think I was actually consciously aware of the sport of football the last time the Dolphins were in the Super Bowl. So for me, while watching the Super Bowl, with not experiencing having my team in it, I'm usually also keeping a strong eye on the commercials, which have seen to pick up over the year, and then of course the halftime show. Any thoughts on the halftime show this year?
The halftime show was very enjoyable. I think it was a bit short. I would have liked it to be a bit longer, but it was very good. I enjoyed it.
Now, all the acts that were in the halftime show, I loved. I was very disappointed though in the fact that I haven't bothered to look for articles to see if it was in the discussion or anything. But it would have been really great, how we've come to expect in the Super Bowls with the halftime performance that there's going to be a surprise artist or a surprise guest show up. I understand with this one that it was 50 Cent, and I love 50 Cent music, but when you're saying that the main performers are Dre, Eminem, Snoop Dogg, Kendrick Lamar, and your surprise is 50 Cent, that's a little bit underwhelming.
Yeah.
I was hoping that we were going to see NWA or at least Ice Cube show up and do an NWA song, which we could all argue as music lovers was really the start of the movement, especially the West Coast movement, but definitely the start of gangster rap, which launched the careers of all the artists that were up there, and obviously Dr. Dre being the orchestrator of that. I guess I would have been a little disappointed if I was at the Super Bowl and happened to be sitting on the wrong side of the field and staring at everybody's backs. And I wish Kendrick Lamar's part would have been a little bit longer. His was really, really quick. But overall, it was entertaining.
It was very good. On the 50 Cent point, I'm going to be honest. When 50 Cent, he just came and he was upside down, I was like, who is that? I didn't even realize it was like a guest until after it was over. I was like, who is it? And I was like, it's 50 Cent. I was like,
yeah.
Why?
I mean, I love that song coming up, and huge 50 Cent fan, and love that he was a part of it. But I guess, we've been conditioned to expect that, they're going to really pull out the stops. The other thing I felt that was kind of tough was they really, from the get-go, put this Super Bowl performance, really up against, a very tough place to be in, because they were building it as this will be the greatest Super Bowl halftime performance you have ever seen. Watch the greatness. And I think, going in with that, there's really nowhere to go but to feel a little bit underwhelmed by the time it was done. I mean, it was great. But would I call it the best Super Bowl halftime performance of all time? No. And that's probably a conversation that we should have another day, because I do want to get your take on the Super Bowl commercials.
The Super Bowl commercials are great for people who are Dolphins fans or Jets fans. I can't say Giants fans because they beat the Patriots twice in the Super Bowl. They're definitely there. Teams who haven't been there that often recently. they really watch for the commercials. They enjoy the game, but even the casual fan who's not that interested in the football, they like seeing the halftime show and they like seeing the commercials. The commercials this year were good. They weren't great.
Right. Agreed.
Usually during the Super Bowl commercials, I'm always like locked in. I'm like, let's see some good commercials. There's usually a lot of funny ones. This year there was only like a few that I found like super interesting. I liked the one with Arnold Schwarzenegger, where he was Zeus. That one was funny. It made me laugh. And then I liked the LeBron James one, where they had the young LeBron James.
That was really cool.
And it was just cool how they did that. It was not inspiring, but it had like a nice message. Yeah, and I like that. And then the worst commercials. And this isn't a specific commercial. I'll hit one after. Every single commercial that was for cryptocurrency.
Yeah.
Like, cryptocurrency is cool, but we don't need like 8 currency commercials during the biggest event of the year. Especially the one with the QR code. The site crashed.
Right.
Like, what? You spent that money and then your site's just gonna crash? What?
Yeah, a lot of people are excited about crypto. For me, I have one commercial that got a genuine laugh out of me, and it's a commercial that probably completely flew under the radar. And it was a Rocket Mortgage commercial with Anna Kendrick. See, you're even looking at me like,
I don't remember.
And it was one where Barbie was apparently trying to buy like her dream house, and it needed a mortgage. And Anna Kendrick shows up. A little girl is playing with Barbie, and Anna Kendrick shows up and says, "Hey, this is how Barbie can get the mortgage." So the side character who doesn't use Rocket Mortgage, the side Barbie doll, she realizes she can't get her house and now has to look for another house for sale. So they pulled out an old He-Man Castle Grayskull toy and had Skeletor on there. So for me, growing up, loved He-Man, loved the toy, had the toy.
I don't know what you're talking
about. Exactly, which is why I got a great, genuine laugh out of me, and anybody that is my age or my generation would probably have gotten a great chuckle out of seeing Castle Grayskull make a resurgence in a commercial with Skeletor, the toy, which I clearly had and played with a great amount. So to me, that was hands down my favorite Super Bowl commercial. Totally underwhelming in terms of its flash and everything else, but it got a legit, genuine laugh from me.
All right.
Now, speaking of things that got a laugh out of me, our conversation on Tuesday I felt was really, really fun, and not looking to recreate it now because sometimes it's a little tough with authenticity, but would like to pick it back up. So Zach and I were having a discussion, and we were talking about players that didn't perform up to what we thought their standards would be, or looking at contract, coming into contract years. And one of those players is Kyler Murray. So I made the thought or suggestion to Zach that Kyler Murray is not a franchise quarterback, and seeing as how he's coming up on a renewal, should not be paid franchise quarterback kind of money. And Zach nearly lost his mind on me. So we started talking about how many quarterbacks in the NFL we would put ahead of Kyler. But first, I want your take on Kyler, and then we're going to set this conversation up with the parameters, where I'm talking about quarterbacks that I would take, not to start a franchise right now. I'm talking about quarterbacks that I would take right now, all things being equal, to go out and win me a game.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, pretty much we were talking about the drama with Kyler and the Cardinals. And then EJ started trashing on Kyler. And Kyler Murray's my favorite quarterback in the NFL. And I just think he's a great talent. And for me, his main problem is, well, he hasn't performed under the big spotlight. I think he'll figure that out. I think his main problem is staying on the field. But then we're having this conversation. I believe for this conversation we were saying, if we're guaranteed for the player to be on the field, who would we rather have, like, right now for a season or a game?
Okay.
And personally, there's only 6 quarterbacks, I would say, and this isn't, like, in-depth, I would consider taking over Kyler Murray. Those quarterbacks are Patrick Mahomes, Aaron Rodgers, Josh Allen, Joe Burrow, Justin Herbert, and if he plays, Deshaun Watson. That's it. I don't think there's another debate. And then, EJ, please list some of the quarterbacks you think are better than Kyler Murray.
Well, if we're talking about quarterbacks in a big game, in a big spot, I would take Dak over Kyler. I think Dak showed, especially down the stretch when the Cowboys really need to start stringing together wins. I mean, he put together 2 50-point performances. So I'm a Dak supporter. I like his fire. I like his leadership. And let me just, as we're talking here, let me point to a couple things with Kyler. One, I have not seen Kyler Murray perform big in a big spot to this date. I mean, people want to say that this year's Dallas game was the closest that Kyler Murray got to a must-win, nationally televised game. And they did go into Dallas and win. Cowboys are an up-and-down team, don't know what you're going to get. But I have not seen him, and this year's playoff debut as well, has not performed big in a big spot. Two, as you said, one of the biggest, and Bill Parcells said, the biggest abilities that a player can have is availability. He has not shown himself to be consistently available to his team. And the third thing that I don't like about him is his body language. And you go and you watch, especially in these games, when he doesn't make a play or something doesn't break right, they don't get a call, his body language immediately expresses, the disappointment or the frustration. And over time, I'm hard-pressed to think of what I would consider to be franchise quarterbacks, guys that are going to go out and win you a game or win you a championship that have body language like that. Maybe the closest right now could be Aaron Rodgers, because the camera loves to zoom in on him, rolling his eyes at a receiver who runs a wrong route, or, giving a guy a glare when he drops a ball, possibly. But I haven't seen anybody shrug their shoulders or hunch over the way that Kyler does. But to get this conversation going, some of the names, I feel you're right. If we look at the NFL, there is clearly an elite tier of quarterback that I think we both agree Kyler is not in.
I think Kyler's just outside, though. I think the 6 quarterbacks I named are the elite tier. I think Kyler's right outside that, with players like Lamar,
who I would take over. So if you're naming them, I would take Lamar over Kyler.
Ooh.
Lamar's won a playoff game.
Okay.
And he also had that game where he was sick and in the bathroom and came out and led his team, on a comeback. So I haven't seen Kyler show that yet. So for me, I'm still taking Lamar in that situation, because Kyler doesn't have anything on his resume that stands up to those. So I understand what I'm trying to lop off in this conversation is the potential, and talk strictly if I'm asked right now to be paying somebody money, that I'm looking at, if I have to pay you money and I'm a GM and I'm paying a quarterback, I want to be paying you on 80% with what you've done and another 20% on where I think you can go. Now,
on that point, though, I think we're saying like one game, 17 games, a full season, without the availability argument. We're saying Kyler Murray and whoever we're comparing to are both going to be on the field for 17 games at full health.
Yeah, I mean, I don't care if you want to make it 17, you want to make it 1. I mean, we can't sit here. I know that everybody likes to turn around and say, oh, Kyler lost to Sean, Kyler lost, Hopkins. There's not a quarterback or a team that hasn't lost key players,
But DeAndre Hopkins, and maybe this is part of your argument, but DeAndre Hopkins was that offense, essentially. Without DeAndre Hopkins, you saw that offense was near to nothing.
Right, which makes me say that you can't turn around and say that a quarterback is an elite quarterback or even a top 10 NFL quarterback if he can't get his team over the hump when he loses a weapon or doesn't have the full command of his arsenal. That to me is a system quarterback. That to me is a Jimmy Garoppolo. That's a Tua. That's what a Ben Roethlisberger was now in his later career. That's a Jalen Hurts. That's a Ryan Tannehill, who's probably the best at that right now. Is get in, here's your weapons. Matt Stafford, another guy like that. I don't know if you take Stafford's. If you took Cooper Kupp off the field on the last drive, was Matthew Stafford, willing that team to victory? Was he fitting balls in tight windows and making those clutch throws?
I would say yes, because if you look at Matt Stafford during his time in Detroit, while they did not win much, they won many more games than they should have pretty much strictly because of Matt Stafford.
But you have Kyler over Stafford.
Yes.
But Kyler hasn't demonstrated that.
But talent-wise, right now, Kyler Murray is a more talented player than Matt Stafford. So that's why in that season I'm taking that Kyler Murray is more talented. He's a better player.
But talent, I mean, people could have argued that Robert Griffin III was more talented than Kirk Cousins. But at some point, you have to turn around and say, Kirk Cousins, who's not the flashy guy, who's not the high-ranked draft pick, who's not the guy that came in and took the team by storm and led them to the playoffs and then, bought half a season or whatever after that, Kirk, you have to at some point say, okay, we understand that this person may possess the talent, but are they getting it done on the field? And to me, I think that I would still, at this point in time, I would take Dak Prescott over Kyler Murray. I would take Lamar Jackson over Kyler Murray. I would take Russell Wilson over Kyler Murray. I would take Stafford over Kyler Murray. And I'm going to be even honest, I would probably take Kirk Cousins over him. And here's another hot take. It's debatable. I might even go Matt Ryan over him. And if you look at Ryan's statistics are damn close to Murray's. If we, he had one rushing touchdown where Murray had 5, but other than that, their passing are almost identical. So that's my hot take. I'm not a Kyler guy. He's going to have to show or at least get a couple W's under his belt where it was Kyler put this team on his back and did it like the greats. Because we're not talking about is Kyler Murray an NFL quarterback. He's absolutely an NFL quarterback. Mm-hmm. Is he a middle tier quarterback, like you said? Absolutely. But is he an elite money franchise guy? I am saying right now, no, absolutely not. And if it came with him saying, pay me the money right now that Mahomes is getting, or pay me the money which they'll basically have to do, right, to keep him. I mean, Mahomes' contract is 10 years, $450 million.
I don't think Kyler Murray will get that.
Allen is 6 years, $258 million. Prescott's 4 years, $160 million. And then you have guys behind them, which are kind of crazy. Rodgers is making $33, $34 million a year, and so is Jared Goff, actually, which is probably Kyler Murray's best, argument. And then Cousins is right behind them, with $33 million. But
the way I'm looking at it, though, is you're saying Kyler isn't going to will a team to win. Kyler choked, right? That's part of your argument.
I hate using the word choke. I'd prefer to say
collapsed under pressure,
or he just hasn't done it in the big spot.
Lived
yet.
up to expectations under big spot. But then you're bringing up guys who, 2 of these guys have been to Super Bowl. So Russell Wilson, Matt Ryan, and Kirk Cousins. All of which also, we know Russell Wilson in the playoffs. Well, not in the playoffs specifically. After week 6, Russell Wilson is barely an NFL QB. Kirk Cousins, whenever he's on prime time, Kirk Cousins is terrible. And in the playoffs, I don't know what has Cousins done to really inspire me in the playoffs. And then Matt Ryan, we know what happened to Matt Ryan, and as a Patriots fan, I'm very happy about it. But I don't think Kyler Murray was on that Falcons team. I don't think the Patriots would have won that Super Bowl.
Wow.
And that was prime Matt Ryan. That was prime
Yeah,
Matt
he was
Ryan.
the MVP that year, I think.
Okay. I think if you put Kyler Murray in that exact situation,
it's another hot take, man.
The Patriots will lose that Super Bowl.
Anyway, where I'm at with it is I would probably put Kyler in the 12 to 13 range, ahead of guys like Carr.
So you have Matt Ryan and Kirk Cousins as top 12 quarterbacks.
No. If we're going, if I'm doing my rankings, where I'd put them all in the same tier. If we're talking about starting a franchise, or right now who to give that money to, it's not really a fair conversation because Matt Ryan and Kirk Cousins are both on the back end of their career. Mm-hmm. So even me, who I'm not a huge Kyler Murray supporter, would be more inclined to pay Kyler Murray that money than I would them. But if we were talking right now about who I would run out onto that field and trust that they could execute an offense in a big spot and not make costly turnovers and not be in a situation where the pressure or the circumstances appear to be too big for the player, yeah, that's a debate. I would probably, it would take me, I'd be really thinking a lot about sending out, Kirk Cousins or a Matt Ryan over it, because they've at least have a few victories in those situations on their resume where Kyler has still not shown me anything.
I have 2 arguments to that. One, I'm just going to start hitting on Kirk Cousins and Matt Ryan Just those two specifically.
Because that's the weak link?
No, because someone can argue. I can't, go definitive. Kyler Murray's better than Russell Wilson, Dak Prescott, Lamar Jackson. If you want to argue it, you can argue that. But the reason why Kyler Murray's better than both of them is maybe rushing touchdowns. You were like, he wasn't that far away from Kirk Cousins. It was like 5-1. Not touchdowns-wise, but I think if the play breaks down, Kyler Murray's ability to get out of the pocket and make a play, that's important to a team.
Okay,
in my opinion.
Let me ask you a question.
Yeah.
So let's put your GM hat on for a second. I'm the Cardinals.
Okay.
You're the Raiders.
Okay.
Okay. I call you up.
Okay.
And I say I will give you Kyler.
Okay.
You send me back Carr and Waller. You making that deal?
No.
Why not?
Because
if he can win, if he's a franchise guy, you still have pieces in
Derek Carr's
in Vegas.
Borderline franchise guy, right? I would probably rank him about 12 or 11 in NFL quarterback situation. Kyler's at 7. That's somewhat close. Then you also have Darren Waller, who I still think is easily a top 5 tight end in football. When he's on the field, I think he's insanely talented. I wouldn't give up both of those players. If you said Derek Carr and a pick, I'd be like, yes. I want Kyler Murray. Also,
you'd give me Derek Carr and your first round draft pick for Kyler Murray.
Yes. Also, late game scenarios. I don't know if you remember that game against Buffalo. Kyler Murray gets out of the pocket, avoids defenders, bombs a 60-yarder up to DeAndre Hopkins to end the game. The Hail Murray. That's a big game you won.
I don't count Hail Marys. I mean, that's just a wing and a prayer. That's just chucking a ball.
Okay.
I mean,
he escaped the pocket.
I mean, are you telling me that you'd have a lot of confidence in your
feet.
3-point shooter who shut his eyes at the buzzer at half court and just heaved the ball and it happened to go in? Would you feel good about saying that I can trust this guy in a crucial situation to stick a 3?
I think if the buzzer's going down, someone says Steph Curry shooting a half-court shot for
Steph
the game.
Curry, who actually, I understand that because that's Steph Curry. What I'm talking about is,
you say Trae Young, Luka Doncic? Both of those, I would also be like, there's a chance that he makes it. So it wouldn't be like, oh, the season's over. That's how I feel about Kyler Murray.
Well, listen, I find this conversation fascinating, and we are absolutely going to revisit this along with some other fringe players that you and I have completely different takes on. And, as I asked you a moment ago to put your GM hat on and felt that you made a terrible choice, I'm going to give you an opportunity to redeem yourself because we are going to play another segment of Fix It, Zach. So we're going to bring in our trusty wheel. And this week, we are going to keep most of the teams we had, and we're going to add a new player, or new team. So we have our Lions, our Dolphins, our Jags, our Falcons, our Jets, and the Ravens. So you know the deal. I'm going to give this wheel a spin, and then whatever team we land on, you are going to discuss how you, as their general manager, would turn this franchise around.
Before you spin it, once again, I want to put out a disclaimer. This is unrealistically realistic. It's realistic to a sense, but obviously a team would not do all of these moves because a team... I don't know. I don't know why a team wouldn't do all these moves, but it's not going to happen in the actual NFL. Okay.
Are you giving this disclaimer because you're afraid that somebody's going to drop and go into some betting site and just bet completely down on the team that you pick, assuming?
Possibly.
All right. I like that confidence. Here we go. Yes.
Oh, the Dolphins. Okay.
Fix them, buddy.
This was definitely a tough one because, the Dolphins are terrible. They're really bad.
Got a new coach.
And they just hired a good coach, but they fired a great coach. So
you think?
I really like Brian Flores as a coach. Because you look at that roster last year, they won more games than they should have. And when that happens, I usually credit it to the coach.
What do you credit the coach when they lose 7 straight?
I mean, not really. So that's a good argument. But for the Dolphins, okay. We're going to address the quarterback situation last.
Oh, man.
We're going to start with building up this defense. Khalil Mack is on the Bears. The Bears are clearly building for the future. They drafted Justin Fields. I think trading him to the Dolphins for obviously a bunch of picks. Draft capital. common theme for the Dolphins.
Are you talking about our first-round picks?
Not specific picks. Probably wouldn't need to give up a first for Khalil Mack. Like multiple seconds, third, fifths.
Okay.
A lot of draft capital. A common theme for the Dolphins in this scenario is building for right now to win and saying we're getting rid of all of our picks. Essentially. Then, in free agency, to keep building the defense, Von Miller's the free agent. Most likely, I thought this through before they won the Super Bowl, so most likely he'll go back. But in case he decides to leave, the Dolphins could offer him some money, bring Von Miller in. It's a pretty decent defense. Now we're back at the offense. So their defense is already pretty good. You guys had a good defense this year. So now the offense. You got Waddle, great wide receiver one. To keep the young receiving core, you should draft David Bell from Purdue. Good receiver. I think bringing the young better than Devontae Parker. So I don't think Devontae Parker ever really was a great fit with Tua. I think David Bell might be a bit better, a bit younger. And then at the running back position, Myles Gaskin helped me beat EJ, but he is not the starter. So, bring in Fournette, not a running team, but if you need to run the ball, you can do much worse than Fournette, who's also a free agent and probably won't be brought back by the Bucs. I don't know if they would.
Well, they got Fournette and Rojo as free agents, so they'll
bring back one probably. Then bring back Gesicki. Gesicki is. I'm a big Gesicki guy.
Yeah.
I don't watch the Dolphins games though, so I don't know if I could really, as a Dolphins fan, I think Gesicki, he's a cool dude. He's pretty cool. Then for the quarterback situation, I think the Dolphins should sign Mitchell Trubisky and or Marcus Mariota to compete with Tua. I think either those guys will elevate Tua to really bring his A game, bring his game to a new level, or if they're outplaying Tua, put them as a starter. And if they're really impressive, then you can keep them for a starter. The scenario here is hopefully one of them becomes better than we know they are right now. Tua still has a lot of potential. The other two obviously kind of failed as starting quarterbacks. I'm still a Mitchell Trubisky fan. I never thought Mitchell Trubisky was that bad. But yeah, just compete. Whoever comes out on top, starter for next year. If they're really impressive, keep them and try to contend with them. They're not impressive. If it does not work, trade Tua and draft capital. And for this draft capital, we're talking about all the first-round picks you can find for Aaron Rodgers. And then, I think with that offense where you'd have Rodgers, Fournette, Gesicki, Waddle, and David Bell. I think that's a good offense. And then defensive-wise, you would still have Xavier Howard, Byron Jones, he might be a free agent, actually.
Jones?
Yeah.
I think so.
It would be assumed you're bringing back Byron Jones, Von Miller, Khalil Mack. I think it would be a well-rounded team, probably powered by that offense, because you have Aaron Rodgers. But the defense could also shut people down, similar to the Bucs team from last year, even though in the Super Bowl they were carried by the defense. So I think that's how the Dolphins can contend in the next few years.
Were you allowed to talk Dolphins? Am I allowed to talk Dolphins for a second?
Yeah.
All right. So here's my thoughts. I doubt you're getting Khalil Mack for anything less than a first-round pick or something that's going to substantially hit you, just because I feel that he is still a staple in Chicago, sells tickets, face of a franchise. Well, I know we're bringing.
Are the Bears selling tickets? We might need a fact for that.
That's a good point. But the issue that I see the Dolphins in, and there's a few franchises like this, and it's been frustrating me, is when you draft a quarterback. And let's say that the Giants are in this position, the Browns are in this position, Dolphins clearly are in this position. You draft a quarterback inside, the top 5 picks, and it's clear that you probably missed on the pick.
You made the wrong pick, yeah.
But you're going to stay married to this guy.
Like Daniel Jones, possibly.
And Baker and Tua. And you're going to give him every chance. Now, at the end of the day, when we are talking about a quarterback, and we're at a spot where we are at right now, like the Miami Dolphins are, we're talking about bedrock, okay? Like, the Miami Dolphins, without actually having to have done a single thing, not a single thing in the last 2 drafts, could have Herbert under center, Jamar Chase, and Najee Harris. And literally would not have had to do anything.
And those players went right after the picks.
100%. Well, Chase went before, but we were in Chase's spot.
Yeah.
We traded out because we didn't expect Cincinnati to do what they did, and that was poor scouting on our part, having no feel for the draft in front of us. And I feel that the Dolphins felt they were very clever because they were the media darlings with the trade we pulled off with the Eagles and the Niners prior to that. I think we were feeling ourselves, and we thought we were going to walk into this draft and just sashay out. And the Dolphins, if you also look, and I'm shocked that Greer is still our general manager, we have wasted so many picks on offensive linemen in the last couple of drafts that have not panned out, that literally the only offensive line Joe Burrow looks at in the entire NFL and says, thank God those guys aren't blocking for me, are the Dolphins' offensive line. That is it. Now, Tua is clearly a system quarterback. He is, at his best, will be Alex Smith.
But he's a good system quarterback. I like Tua.
But he lacks every physical tool
he showed
you need
potential,
in the NFL.
though.
I don't know. He has not shown that he, like Kyler Murray, can do anything. He played in one big game this year. That was a Tennessee game, and he was terrible, and they were blown out. And that was the game
against the 1 seed of the AFC.
Who were, at that point in time, cruising into the playoffs, and the Dolphins had won 6 straight games.
Crushed your playoff hopes.
Not crushed them, buddy. They stomped on them.
Yeah.
But anyway, so the Dolphins, I feel that they have to, which they're not going to do, address the quarterback situation. We're going to bring in a couple journeymen. I agree with what you said. I would not be shocked if it's Trubisky or a Jimmy G or a Mariota or some retread from somewhere else that still thinks they're a starter in the NFL.
Ryan Fitzpatrick.
Well, he's actually he was shirtless, jumped through tables, and eating wings at the last Buffalo game. So I don't think Dolphins fans are going to welcome him back. But, who, a Darnold or a Heineke? I mean, there's 1,000 of them.
Carson Wentz.
Yeah, that's going to, they'll come in, and Tua will be Tua. He'll beat up on, the weak teams in the league, that are the soft teams on our schedule, hiding behind, a mediocre running game and the scheme we have and our very solid defense. And we'll get the doors blown off by the Bills, the Pats, and any other team that happens to be on our schedule this upcoming year that has a respectable offense, because Tua does not throw the ball past 7 yards. So unless we're just going to keep killing teams by slant passing them to death, I don't see it. But let's get on to our next segment. We got 2 today, and this one is stay or go. And we have some players on here, and you are going to tell me which player, or the one it lands on, whether they should stay in their current situation or leave their current situation. And we have Devontae Adams, Jimmy Garoppolo, Aaron Rodgers, Baker Mayfield, Russell Wilson, and Aaron Donald. Are you ready? Any disclaimers that we need for this one?
The disclaimer is this obviously isn't purely should the player want to go back. It's what should happen as regard for the player and team.
Okay. Here we go. You ready?
Yes.
Oh, juicy one. Aaron Rodgers to the Dolphins.
I think Aaron Rodgers should go. I do not think Aaron Rodgers should be a Green Bay Packer next year. I feel like he's done everything he can in Green Bay, and they're not winning. They're not winning every year. It doesn't matter what they do in the regular season anymore. It doesn't matter how many MVPs he picks up. It doesn't matter what his supporting cast is, because he's got a great supporting cast. It just doesn't seem like he can get into a playoff game. And I'm not saying that's the player he is. I think he has to go. He can bring Devontae Adams and Marcus Valdes-Scantling with him if he wants. But I think not Detroit. He's not going to Detroit. Denver or Miami or somewhere like that would be a good option for him. And maybe he can change his image. Because right now, if you ask like a normal NFL fan who's not a Packers fan, most people probably don't like Aaron Rodgers. I don't like Aaron Rodgers. I don't hate Aaron Rodgers, but I'm not a fan of Aaron Rodgers. I think he's a diva. He's very selfish. He's always in the media, and I don't know. I don't think he's getting it done in Green Bay anymore. So I think Green Bay, they'll be fine trading him. He was upset with the situation last offseason. I don't know how he feels right now. No one really ever knows how Aaron Rodgers feels. But they're going to get a good trade package for him, probably from multiple different teams, and I think it's time to move on.
What I like is, I agree with what you said about Aaron Rodgers. I, through most of his career, did not actively root before Aaron Rodgers, he was normally the villain in the story that I was following or paying attention to. However, I've actually come to like Aaron Rodgers.
Really?
And here's my take on Aaron Rodgers. I feel NFL athletes, they're in a certain bubble. You're an NFL fan or you're a sports fan. You recognize most of these names, and, inside that circle, these guys are celebrities. But I think there's a handful of these guys that have the desire to break outside of the sports world and become the term a household name, meaning that the average person who knows nothing about sports knows this person's name. And I think Aaron Rodgers has been somebody that we've seen him in more and more commercials. He was hosting Jeopardy. And I think the way that he came out this year and chose to discuss the things that were frustrating him, whether it be the organization or his vaccination status or things like that, were very open, very honest, and were clearly like soundbite, hot take kind of stuff. Things that would be picked up and discussed by people outside of just the sports world. So I don't want to call Aaron Rodgers calculated, but I do think there is a level of calculating to people like Rodgers and Brady, who, as they start coming down, we'll use the old golf term, they're on their back nine of their career. Clearly, I mean, we can't say that Aaron Rodgers is on the front nine of his career. I mean, regardless how many years he has left, he's clearly closer to retiring than he is to the start of his career. That they're thinking about what's next and where do we go, and being a brand. Tom Brady, TB12, is a brand now. Like, his whole thing is a brand. He is a brand.
I think the difference is Aaron Rodgers needs to do what Tom Brady did. Tom Brady became a brand, but he became a brand by being so good on the football field that even if I don't know football, I know Tom Brady. It's like, if you don't know basketball, you know Michael Jordan, you know Kobe Bryant, you know LeBron James.
Aaron Rodgers did win the MVP this year.
He's won 2 straight.
That's right.
But if you ask someone who's never watched a game of football in their life, watched it like 20 years ago and hasn't watched since then, they wouldn't know who Aaron Rodgers is. That's because he's got to be like, stop focusing on Jeopardy, stop focusing on State Farm commercials, and lock in, get it done on the football field. And then, if he wins another Super Bowl, I can't say anything about Aaron Rodgers. I can't say he doesn't get it done in the playoffs or anything.
Well, I guess the conversation then becomes, are we talking about Aaron Rodgers and his NFL legacy, which it sounds like you're hitting on? Are we talking about Aaron Rodgers the brand? Because to me, Aaron Rodgers the brand, he doesn't have to do anything else. I mean, he is clearly, at this point in time, the top quarterback in the NFL. He has been, for an extended period of time, the player's choice as a top quarterback in the NFL. I mean, there's player after player, ex-player after player that go on sports talk shows and say, Brady's phenomenal, but the guy that we hated playing against, the most gifted quarterback that we've gone against, has been Aaron Rodgers. I think that he's just, and more focused on his brand, and Brady did this stuff. Brady used to drag things out. He's actually kind of dragging out over time. He's saying, well, never say never now. Yeah. I mean, these guys have learned that there's 2 components, and I think coaches are learning this too now. It's become very interesting that, there's the old school way of, hey, I'm a football player, I concentrate, and all this media stuff is a distraction. And then I think the new generation of coaches and players saying, well, wait a second, this media stuff and the NFL go hand in hand. TV's nationally televised, people party around the Super Bowl, all this stuff is like, it's followed, it's watched, it's connected to. And yeah, we're athletes on the field, but we're also in some way kind of like a sports celebrity. And I think it's then the guys that are looking to move up these ranks and say, okay, well, I'm a football player, so I am guy number 54 on a 60-man roster, right? Mm-hmm. That guy's not getting indoors. That guy, he's lucky if he's called back the next year, right? I mean, he's lucky if he gets in on special teams and isn't cut and replaced by somebody else.
Ben Zeronic.
Exactly. But then we get to the guys that, the local fan bases know. And then you get to the next tier, which is, a guy that's known around the league. Mm-hmm. And then you get to the superstar status. And then it's that elite status, and then you start to move beyond that, where now anybody knows you. You're a pop, you're a pop culture reference. Mm-hmm. Whether it's rappers or actors or other people in government referencing you in whether it be in a lyric or wearing your jersey in a video, you start to become a little bigger than the sport. And we could say right now guys like Brady and Peyton Manning did that. I mean, people recognize when Peyton Manning hosting SNL and things like that. Those are those breakthrough things. So I feel like that's what Rodgers is looking to do now. He's looking to kind of create that that post NFL quarterback Aaron Rodgers brand. A guy like Drew Brees doesn't really have a brand. Football, being a responsible, focused, quarterback is Drew Brees, which is why now he just moved right into broadcasting. But I think guys like Brady maybe and Rodgers have their sights set on something bigger than just moving into the prime spot like a Romo did or someone else. But speaking of staying and going, we need to go from this segment. But how about somebody that has gone to more places than James Harden? And I feel last podcast you were talking about the lack of luster around the NBA trade deadline, and we didn't really get much, but we got one. It's like going out fishing one day and sitting around forever, but you get one good fish. Like this is what we're talking about now. So why don't you tell me your take on this Harden-Simmons Nets Sixers move?
Yeah. So the NBA trade deadline was definitely more interesting than I thought it would be. There were a few interesting trades, but this was the headliner, the one that made people excited, and both teams 100% won this trade. The Sixers got better because they traded Ben Simmons, who wasn't gonna play for them, and they got James Harden, I think he fits good with Joel Embiid. Joel Embiid is dominating the league right now. I don't even know if they need James Harden, but yeah, they win that. And then the Nets got Ben Simmons, who's a better fit. He wants to be there. It's the same thing. James Harden didn't want to be there anymore, so he left. Ben Simmons wants to be there. Him and KD is going to be a great duo. Half the games when Kyrie plays, it's a great trio. So they have a great 2.5. They have a big 2.5. And I think it's a nice fit. He plays defense. He's going to pass the rock. And that's what they needed. They didn't need another guy like James Harden who's going to dribble 5,000 times, take 7 steps backwards and pull it and swish it. They needed someone who's going to lock in, play some defense, and make the smart basketball play. And that's what Ben Simmons does. Ben Simmons comes in, and he has a better jump shot. He's more aggressive. That's great.
So, talk to me about this. This is the only NBA question that I have right now for you. Why does James Harden seem to burn himself out of all the places he goes to? For somebody that, and with somebody that has a track record like that, as either a general manager or somebody that would be a major sports, fanatic of the particular team that he may be rumored to come to, why do you want James Harden to come to your team?
Because he is insanely talented. He is not, as many people say, the best scorer of all time, but he's up there. He's a great scoring player. And you look at it, it wasn't always his fault. In OKC, they just let him go. They didn't want to pay him. James Harden's gone to Houston. And then for Houston, he did wear a fat suit. He did everything he could to get out of Houston. But that was after however many years of playing at the top level, the top of his game. And they couldn't win it. No matter who they put around him, he couldn't win. And then the last year, he didn't like the pieces around them. He's like, I want to get out. He went to Brooklyn. And I think him and Kyrie, which, we probably could have predicted, they didn't like each other. He didn't like how Kyrie was refusing to get vaccinated, which pretty much means he's refusing to play in half the games. He's getting paid to do this, and he doesn't want to take that to play. And KD was injured, and then it was just James Harden. Half the games, it was just James Harden with a bunch of cheerleaders around him. And you want to... Obviously, I agree. He's not a great locker room presence. Joel Embiid is. Joel Embiid's going to straighten him out. If he doesn't want to be in Philly, he doesn't want to be in Philly. Then we got to start saying James Harden has a problem. But he wanted to win a ring, and with the Kyrie situation, they weren't meshing. He didn't think he could win one in Brooklyn, I guess.
So what does it take, in your opinion, to keep a James Harden happy?
You keep trying to win, and you win. I think...
so James Harden only cares about W's. It's not about
at this point
his touches or how many points or how he fits in the offensive scheme, the offense needing to run through him or anything like that. your take is that he is just about W's.
I think right now James Harden's main goal is to win a championship. I think he's still gonna put up his points, but you look at when the Big Three was playing in Brooklyn, he didn't turn back into, but he tended towards passing the ball a bit more. But like when he was back in OKC and was the sixth man, he was passing the ball a bit more. He was taking less like triple step backs. And then when it was his time to do that, he did it. He executed. But he needed the ball less. And I think in that Philly offense, that's what he's going to do. He's going to be the main ball handler, but he's not going to be the main offensive option. That's still going to be Joel Embiid. James Harden's still going to get his touches, but I think he's going to be totally happy to give the ball to Embiid, give it to Tobias Harris, Danny Green, and Matisse Thybulle, people like that, trying to get wins.
In your opinion, can you think of any NBA players, current or past, that has had a track record, say like Harden, that has gone on to win a championship?
So like they had a track record
of
then
wanting out of situations,
and then they won a championship after.
And then got in a situation where
because I would say Kyrie, but he won his championship before he wanted to get out of situations.
And I'm not meaning, because I mean we got players, we can point to players that have stepped out of one situation and gone to another, like for example or Shaq, but have gotten out and moved from team to team to team. So maybe something for you to chew on, and we can always pick this one back up. But for me, that's something that I just feel in sports sometimes it starts to follow a player. And I understand there's been a handful of teams here or there that quote unquote brought in hired guns and poor locker room guys to try to win championships. But I don't really remember many teams that have had a player that is burned out of a handful of spots. I mean, I know people have tried it with guys like Rodman. I mean, maybe we say Dennis Rodman, but he really went from Detroit,
a great team, to another great team,
right, and then to the Lakers. I mean, so then he also went to the Lakers.
Did he win a championship there?
He
must have.
Yeah.
I'm trying to think. There's Chris Paul, but Chris Paul is a great locker room guy. He didn't burn out of any situation. But Chris Paul is turning into a journeyman. He's never won one. And this year might be his year. I'm not going to make a hot take here.
Westbrook's getting there.
But I feel like Westbrook, even though Westbrook is kind of a poor locker room guy, his game isn't really team friendly. He's never won. He's not a guy who's going to request out of a situation. I don't think he requested out of OKC, as far as I know. But yeah, I can't think of anyone on that note.
Well, I know something you can think of, and I know you're really fired up for this, and that is what we're going to close out today with, and get ready for some hot takes from my man Zach. We're going to talk about the article that ESPN released about the 100 best baseball players of all time, and this includes past and present players. We could probably do 3 podcasts on this, but Zach is going to hit on some top line points that he has where you strongly disagree. But why don't you tell me overall, how did you feel about the article?
I just feel like I don't know what the guy's thought process was when he made this list, because he included players like Manny Ramirez and players like that who use steroids, right? And I tend to agree with him because I don't see how steroids didn't make a player. You still have to hit the ball, you still have to run the bases, you still have to field. You gotta make contact with the ball still. Maybe it'll help hitting it out of the park, but I can't really hold that against a player. So they included them, but they partially hurt their rankings because of that. And I don't know if they were doing accolades, statistics, or just talent, because certain players with a bunch of statistics and accolades weren't there. Well, they were there, but they were lower. And then players with talent were higher, but then it was sometimes switched. It was confusing. So I'm going to start with players who were too high up on the list. Probably need to be lowered down a bit. A bit overrated. We're going to start off with Pedro Martinez. They're ranked as the second best pitcher of all time. And I do agree. Pedro Martinez is best modern day pitcher of all time.
What was his overall ranking?
He was ranked number 11.
Okay.
And I just think no pitcher should be in the top 25.
Really?
I think it's a bit too aggressive because I think they pitch every 4 days, and then I don't know if you compare that to great players who play every single day. Every single day they're playing impacting the game, and players like Pedro Martinez. Pedro Martinez was incredibly talented. This is why I don't like comparing pitchers and hitters, because you're telling me his impact over every 4 games, he played 1 in every 4 games, is greater than Ken Griffey Jr.'s impact when he plays every game.
Well, you know the adage, good pitching beats good hitting.
Yeah, I guess, but I don't think all time you can rank pitchers that high. So then my next guy is Walter Johnson at number 9.
Okay.
He was great. I never obviously watched him play because a common theme of this list is there was probably like 60 guys who played before 1940 on this list.
Okay.
And it's just annoying because you can't. I would just rank a modern day list, and then you can rank those guys if you want. But that also goes on the next guy, Ty Cobb at number 4. You're not telling me that there's only 3 players better than Ty Cobb all time. I have no problem with them ranking, like Babe Ruth and stuff, and older players like that. But like Ty Cobb, like there's a few players on the list who never played in the 20th century, and then it's like, how are we comparing these guys to Alex Rodriguez and like David Ortiz? And then we have a modern day player here who's yet another pitcher, but it's even worse. Mariano Rivera was ranked as the 31st best player of all time. Mariano Rivera, without a question, even as a Red Sox fan, is the best relief pitcher of all time. It's not like a hot take, it's not an argument, it's a fact. But a relief pitcher who pitches 1 inning like every other day cannot be ranked as a top 30 player at all time. If you want to have Mariano Rivera on this list, have him in the 90s. That's the highest he can be. He's a relief pitcher. You can't, like, he's ranked like 50 spots higher than Chipper Jones. That's just someone I remember. He was pretty low on the list. And Vladimir Guerrero. And he's a relief pitcher. I would have David Ortiz, even as a designated hitter, higher than him. Also, because he owns Mariano Rivera. And then we have players that are too low. The first one, which is the worst one, is Barry Bonds. Barry Bonds obviously used steroids, but I'm not going to take anything like that away from Barry Bonds. He was ranked number 8 all time. And it's kind of tough to be like, he's still in the top 8. Barry Bonds, without a question, you can rank him wherever you want compared to Ruth, Mays, Aaron, Ted Williams, Lou Gehrig. I personally think, at lowest, Barry Bonds needs to be top 5 all time. Probably top 3, probably top 2. I mean, you can't argue with his statistics.
I mean, when teams were walking him when the bases were loaded.
With the bases loaded. That didn't happen to Babe Ruth.
Yeah.
That didn't happen to Ty Cobb, who's 4 spots ahead of him. Ty Cobb. And then we have, this one's a bit less bad. I just feel like Ken Griffey Jr. He was ranked number 13. That's a good spot considering he was a lot injured, but I think he should be in the top 10. I think he should probably be about the 7-8 range. And when you get down to like the top 15, every spot makes a big difference. I just feel like his statistics and what he accomplished in his career were great, but then you also have to consider how talented he was. If he hadn't got injured, how many more home runs he would have hit, how many more like accolades he would have hit, and how much his statistics would have went up, and how much, if he had played his whole career, he would probably be number 1 on this list. And he didn't, so I'm not saying put him number 1, but you got to also account how talented he was. So 13 doesn't seem fair. Below Pedro Martinez. Then I have Ichiro, 46.
Okay.
I think Ichiro should be more near like 30, the 25 range, just because he had like a whole like Hall of Fame career in Japan, then came over to the MLB and still had a Hall of Fame career. It's crazy. He didn't in an era where everyone was just taking steroids and trying to smoke it over the fence. Ichiro just focused on hitting the ball to where the defenders were not. He got on base, and it's really all I need to say. He got on base. He got so many hits. I think 46 just seems a bit unfair.
Well,
and then we can skip a few of these guys, but this is the one actually the most problem with, even more than Barry Bonds. Alex Rodriguez. And I am a Red Sox fan. I hate Alex Rodriguez. If I'm watching Alex Rodriguez commentate for wherever he's commentating right now, I mute it. I don't listen to him. That's how annoying he is to me. But he's ranked number 26. I don't see in any way you can say there's 25 players better all time than Alex Rodriguez. He's top 15, probably top 10. Probably top 5, if you look at it. I might have him at 6 or 7 or 8, just because I don't like him. But, 26? That just seems, unbelievable. And then Cal Ripken Jr., number 66. Cal Ripken Jr. doesn't need to be as high on this list as guys like Alex Rodriguez. But 66? Derek Jeter, who I believe was 28, I'm trying to do some quick math here, 38 spots ahead of Ken Griffey Jr. Absurd. I'm not going to get into the argument now. I hate Derek Jeter. Good player. I probably would take Ken Griffey Jr. over him if I had to pick a player all time. But at the very least, it's a conversation.
Right.
It's not a, did I say 58? No. Right. It was 38 or something. It's not a 38 spot conversation. So, 66 seems unfair.
Well, so I'll just kind of wrap this up with a few of my thoughts. Not on the players. I mean, to me, I feel a player that's always consistently underrated is Tony Gwynn. And I feel that Tony Gwynn should absolutely always be a top 10 player of all time. Where was he on this ranking?
I think he was 40-something. Wow. Or 30-something, somewhere around there.
Tony Gwynn, to me, he was, for years, and pretty much almost his entire career, one of the toughest players to strike out. Phenomenal, played the game the right way. Excellent contact hitter. But the thing that gets me, especially when it comes to baseball, is I don't know why we have to look at these lists with tunnel vision. It's very simple for, list creators to come out with a, modern list and, a list that uses metrics that judge players that aren't playing by today's standards. I mean, how do we rank players that played when the league was still segregated?
Yeah.
And African American players were not allowed to play. And
they did rank Satchel Paige and players like that on this list though.
Right, but at the same point in time,
It's
weren't
tough to rank them against these players.
Exactly.
They weren't playing the MLB.
And they weren't playing each other.
Yeah.
And second, half those guys at times were playing against players that were only part-time athletes back then. Being a Major League Baseball player wasn't a full-time job. You didn't train year-round. You were a plumber sometimes in the offseason.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. They say Michael Jordan played against plumbers, which he did not. Ty Cobb probably legitimately played against plumbers. Right. People who finished, fixing a bathroom. They were like, oh, man, there's a game at 4 o'clock. I might go.
Right. And then the other thing is with, steroids, it's very easy to create lists that exclude players if you want to view, the steroid controversy as something that should disqualify players from being included on a greatest of all time list. I'll leave and I'll close out with the conversation about pitchers and versus hitters. And I understand the fact that we say, well, if a guy goes out one every 5 days and plays, he shouldn't be looked at the same way. The counter argument to that, I feel, is when a Pedro Martinez takes the mound, he has much more control and influence over that game than Johnny Damon hitting leadoff does. In order for Damon to get into a spot in that game to quote-unquote win the game, Damon could go 4 for 4 in a game with 4 home runs, and this team could still lose by 20 runs.
But if Pedro pitches 7, 8 shutout innings, his team's not going to lose.
Or he goes and he does what he does. So to me, the impact of a pitcher on the game, their direct impact negates or is a checker on a checker over with the argument of not playing every day like an everyday player does. Now, I'm with you. I had the good fortune of being in my baseball comeuppeth when Pedro Martinez was in his prime, which was when I was really an avid baseball fan and really coming into my own in the game and watching it on a consistent basis. And he was unbelievable. I mean, he was basically untouchable, and always showed up in a big spot, was fiery, and really was incredible to watch. And I feel that that's actually something too that should really factor in on these lists, and is difficult is when you were watching this player play on a game in and game out basis, understanding, baseball is a game of ups and downs, but year over year, were you watching something that just
you were just like, wow,
exuded greatness, like a Mike Trout, who consistently year over year puts up very, very solid stats, letting you know every single year he is one of the best players in the league, and doesn't, which was a byproduct, I think a lot of us that came up through the steroid era saw, where these guys came up, had 3 or 4 monster years, and then fell off, and were completely undiscoverable prior to those years. And guys like McGuire, Canseco, Sammy Sosa, Brady Anderson from the Orioles, they're players that I do kind of just throw right under the the steroid blanket of but Barry Bonds,
Alex Rodriguez, after steroids,
were just insane.
They were still good.
Right.
They weren't like, it's not like they hit 40 home runs and then hit 2 the next year. Right. And the only thing I'm gonna say about the pitcher hitter argument is a pitcher could have, let's say, the best possible season for a pitcher all time, and their team could still be terrible.
Yeah. Most
likely, let's say you break Barry Bonds' home run record.
Mm-hmm.
Your team's probably going to be good. I understand Mike Trout had a bunch of great seasons, and he's never won a playoff game. But the way I'm looking at it is, most likely, if you're having an amazing, like an all-time statistical hitting season, your team's going to be good. And if you have an all-time statistical pitching season, look at Jacob deGrom. His team's not always that good.
But you look at a guy like deGrom and you see reflected his dominance in his ERA, which I guess, as opposed to sometimes his win-loss, especially if you have a team that can't close it out. Now, I'm going to close it out, but before I do, the one thing I'm shocked at is you basically gave 1,000 disclaimers all podcast long, and here we are talking about steroids and becoming great baseball players, and there's no disclaimer on not doing steroids. You youth baseball players out there,
do not do steroids.
All right. There, you heard it from Zach. Steroids are bad. Okay. Well, my friend, an awesome podcast today. Super excited for our next one. Please check in below. The links in the notes will have the link to the ESPN article. And you can feel free to always message Zach if there's anything that you guys want us to talk about. Till then, stay cool, and we'll see you next time.